Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Voices for All podcasts. I am Marcus, I'm the CEO of Quilombo UK, and we're here today in our podcasts with the resilience funding from Kingston Council. Thank you very much, Kingston Council, for giving us the opportunity to bring this to the Kingston residents. And this podcast, we are addressing the refugee community and the organizations that work with refugees and asylum seekers in Kingston, sharing everything that is available to all of the refugees and asylum seekers in Kingston, as well as inspiring stories and how the organizations are working with the community and supporting the community. We are Quilombo UK. We are a social marketing agency working on behavior change. You can find out more about us. Probably there will be a link here or on the screen saying quilombouk.com, the website. It would be great to also hear if you have anything to say on your comments in the videos, or if you want to email us and give some suggestions, please do. I've got the pleasure to have here with me today Bassam, the CEO of Refugee Action Kingston. Bassam, thank you so much for coming. I know you are
great to be here, Marcus.
Absolutely busy, and it's great to have you here. And yes, please, if you would be great to hear a little bit more of your role when you joined Refugee Action Kingston. I know you have a brilliant team as well, an office just next door to us as well. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, Marcus. So, as you say, my name is Bassam Mahfouz. I run Refugee Action Kingston. I've been doing that for a couple of years now. And just a little bit of my background in terms of why I went for this role and why I feel it's really important. Yep. So, I was born in Beirut in Lebanon during the Civil War. Yep. My family had to leave Lebanon and were fortunate enough to be able to leave Lebanon, and my dad came over here and got a job here. My mum came speaking no English, but managed to, she was a teacher back home, but actually not only learned English, but then became an ESOL, an English teacher herself to new arrivals to the UK. And I certainly grew up in an area where, as well as developing fantastic relationships and friendships, I also saw the discrimination and hatred in the area to people who are new arrivals from outside, faced racism and the usual sorts of challenges that many new arrivals face when they come to the UK. So for me, I grew up quite politicised, wanting to tackle the social injustices that I saw, wanting to help people and help people to improve their lives. And very much through this role, we're able to make sure that for almost all asylum seekers and refugees, what they're looking to do is effectively just be able to live their best lives here in the UK, having lost everything back home. And so that's what we do on a day-to-day basis, is trying to support those people who are here in Kingston and simply trying to do the best for themselves and their families to be able to do that, to be able to integrate into the new community. We've got an amazing community here in Kingston, and it's great to be a part of what is a fantastic organisation. Last year alone, we supported over 1,500 asylum seekers and refugees in the
1,500 in the local just community. 2023.
23-24, yeah. Oh, sorry, 22-23.
22-23. So you came as your family came as refugees?
So not as refugees, although obviously my family were not able to live in Lebanon because of the situation there. I was fortunate enough to be able to, my dad as a journalist was able to secure a job here in the UK, and so was able to come on a work visa, but effectively because we had to leave our
but in a
behind.
Similar condition as you mentioned, having to leave your home for a reason,
yes, absolutely,
that you couldn't stay there, and having to move the entire family, as you mentioned, your mum wasn't speaking English as well at that time.
Yeah, so she was a teacher back home, spoke French and Arabic, but no English. Came over here, obviously learnt English, and then became
English enough to then teach.
Yeah, absolutely, exactly.
And you now, the CEO of an organisation that helps people in a similar situation.
Exactly,
it must be amazing and fulfilling to support people in that.
Completely, I think one of the most rewarding parts of the job is obviously seeing, and particularly our young people. I've just come from our other office where we're supporting a new family that have just arrived, and making sure that they can have the skills to be able to integrate into their classes, with other children. It's a real challenge, particularly for children, isn't it? When they just want to belong, when they've had to leave everything behind, it's incredibly traumatic for so many of our clients. And being able to support them to have, just be able to, they've got their hopes and dreams that they bring with them. They might have left everything else behind, but they've got their hopes and dreams with them, and we just want to be able to enable them, empower them to be able to do that. And one of our values is very much about enterprise. Actually, it takes a lot of guts. It takes a hell of a lot for somebody to leave everything behind, to make that epic, traumatic journey to a place like the UK. And actually, each one of those individuals, each one of those families are incredibly enterprising to be able to do that in the first place. And so we know that they've got so much to contribute to the UK and to Kingston, and we want to be able to enable them to be able to do that.
And if it's already difficult for the adults to face a situation like this, imagine the children. And as you mentioned, we're not even getting into the details of the actual journey. And as you say, fortunate enough for your father to have a visa here. And the ones who come in many different ways we see, attempting to get into a journey. And those kids must have, as you say, they hopes and dreams, but also I imagine what goes on in the mind, having to witness everything and be in a country that not only arrive, but then the difficulties to integrate as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrific to imagine some of the things that some of those young people have seen, witnessed, had to go through before they've arrived to the UK. They've got the trauma of what they've had to leave behind. They've got the trauma of the journey itself. And then obviously when they arrive here, then that sense of not belonging to anything, having to re-establish yourself. And you know how important it is to, even just for children, to have friendships and that sense of belonging. But actually that's also really important for adults as well. One of the things that we're trying to tackle with our community hub offer, for example, is that actually social isolation and loneliness is the equivalent on your physical health of smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Wow. So this is a study to show what would be equivalent to a physical...
So just on your physical health. So
the mental impact.
On top of the mental impact. So when you arrive and you've got nobody, being able to have that community connect is so incredibly important, and that's what we're doing through our community hub and through our work.
Amazing. Thank you. What's the difference between refugees and asylum seekers?
Sure. Well, I'm going to just take a little bit of a step back. I think the first thing to recognise that either of those people, asylum seekers and refugees, could be any of us. And the only difference between somebody who isn't having to be a refugee or asylum seeker and somebody who is the misfortune of where they were born, the political situation of their country, the rules that don't allow you to either mean that you're in a conflict zone, in war, that you're having to flee, as we saw in Ukraine, or that you are being persecuted for who you are, as we see in so many different countries. So simply for being born as a woman, you could very much be persecuted. Your situation is, the religion, your religion, your social group that you could be a part of. These are all things that mean that if you're having to leave because of potential persecution, imprisonment, discrimination on the basis of these elements, we've signed up to as a country, as many other European and North American countries after that Second World War, where we said never again. We said, look, we will be allowing people to apply for asylum, for refuge in our countries. And so ultimately what that means is a refugee is just somebody seeking refuge from conflict zone, from war, from the persecution or potential incorrect imprisonment simply because of who they are, and just wanting to be able to have the freedom of being able to express themselves in their way. You might be imprisoned because of your political opinion, for example, and again, that's one of the reasons. So an asylum seeker is somebody who, once they've arrived into a new country, they have sought asylum. They've made an application to that country. In this case here, it would be to the Home Office to say that I want to be recognised as a refugee. Once the Home Office has determined that you've got a legitimate claim, then they will be the ones who grant you the refugee status. So that's the only difference. It's effectively that they're refugees, but they're only recognised as refugees by the government once their application has been considered. So
in those two cases, are those two groups, for example, attempt and manage to get in the UK, and then some are already refugees and some are waiting, or does it?
So once you arrive in the UK,
yeah,
and you've had to leave a conflict zone,
yeah,
a war zone, or because of that persecution that you're going to face because of your race, religion,
yeah,
because of your social group that you belong to, or because of some protected characteristics like that, is that you will make an application to claim asylum. Once the Home Office has determined that your claim is legitimate, as far as they're concerned, that's when they will grant you the refugee.
So we have here your website. How does it work for anybody that is a refugee or asylum, or anybody maybe that people supporting people to be refugees and asylums? I'm thinking the rationale of people getting in touch with you.
Sure.
How and why can they get in touch with Refugee Action Kingston?
So we've been established in the borough for over 30 years, so really, really well connected with the community within Kingston. So obviously most people's entry point to the service will be as asylum seekers, because they have been newly placed within the borough by the Home Office, and they've made that application to seek asylum to be recognised as a refugee. Now, there's going to be lots of needs that they have in that time, because they're not allowed to work, they're not allowed to access particular services. Many asylum seekers will either be on very little money per week. So if they're living in a property, it'll be £41 a week or so.
£41 a week.
Yeah, but actually
per person.
But actually, per person. But if they're in one of the hotel accommodation, then actually they'll be living off £9.50 a week.
£9.50 a week.
Yeah. So with that, they're meant to be buying their clothing, any items that they actually want to buy. They're supposed to be buying with £9.50 a week.
And you just said that, just for all of the audience to understand, why are they in the hotel getting £9.50? They're not allowed to work.
They're not allowed to work during that time. Yeah.
Wow.
So whilst many of them will want to come here and be able to contribute to the local economy, to the local community. They're placed in this state of limbo for what should only be hopefully a number of months, but actually very often can become protracted out into years, where they are sitting there with their family, not being able to really get on with the next stage of their lives because no decision has been made as to their application. And so during that time, we will be supporting them with their legal applications to make sure that they're making the appropriate representations in relation to their application, so that they're presenting their case in the best way possible, that they are getting access to the sorts of funds and support that they require during that time, and making sure that, for example, we have our donations store where they're able to get hold of new clothing, essential items and the like, to try and support them during that time. And then the other bits that we do is that we've got our community hub, where they can come in, and because again during the first 6 months they're not even allowed to learn English.
They're not allowed to learn English.
So well, in terms of they won't get funded places to learn
be
English.
able to access.
So they couldn't go to a college or similar to be able to do that. So again, we provide support for them to be able to connect with other people who have gone through similar circumstances, to be able to show off their talents and what they're able to do, and make sure that they're also able to start developing their conversational English and their written English to
my God, you guys are amazing. And the work you do is
and that's just some of it, Marcus. We also provide employability support, adult education and training. We also provide counselling, which, as you can imagine, is incredibly important. I've talked about those traumatic situations that people will have been facing and so on. So we also provide a specific service for younger people as well, because many of them may be waiting for school places. Others will be, will need additional support with their school places to improve their English or connectivity.
And can somebody contact you? They might know Does it happen that maybe an asylum seeker or a refugee doesn't know about you guys, or doesn't? Or...
Generally speaking, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. With 1,500 people that we supported last year, I'd be very surprised if there were refugees or asylum seekers who didn't know about us. We work in the locations where asylum seekers are placed, and so we reach out to them to make sure that they're aware of us. And obviously, once they've got their status and have become refugees, that's a whole different challenge that they're facing, because they then have to make sure that they're sorted out for a house or accommodation. They're also trying to move on to things like universal credit or getting a job, and so on and so forth. So there's lots of different challenges once they've even got their status. And again, we support them around that and trying to help them stay locally, because they feel like they've invested their time and they want to put back into the community that they've effectively been established in. So we support them in trying to do that going forward as well. So with the refugee community, again, that's something that we work very well connected with, and there's lots of people who fortunately have been able to stay in Kingston, and we continue to support them with the challenges that they face, but also helping them to be able to contribute to the local community and economy here in Kingston.
And what about the residents that have a lot of empathy and would like to support the work that you guys are doing, or support the refugees? What can they do? Do they come to your website? Do they visit you? And we can put some details in the screen as well.
Fabulous. Well, look, I always say there's 3 things that people can do to support us, and all of those are detailed on our website, refugeeactionkingston.org.uk.
refugeeactionkingston.org.uk. It's going to be here in the screen. refugeeactionkingston.org.uk.
But the 3 ways that they can help is, first of all, that I'm sure we'll be talking about some of the stories, and so
absolutely,
it doesn't cost a penny for people who want to provide support to start following us on our social media channels, on Insta, on Facebook, or on Twitter, and just to share some of the stories that we have with other people, because there's a challenge, particularly in the current climate, to make sure that actually we're getting the real stories out there of what people are facing, whether they're asylum seekers or refugees, and actually what they're contributing towards as well locally. So follow us on some of those channels, share the stories. The second one is about donating your time. So it could be that if somebody wants to volunteer, we've got a list of current volunteer vacancies. There's a number of them that are available, and please do have a look at those and check whether there's anything that matches what you're looking to do, and you can fill in our quick form, and we'll follow that up. And of course, lastly, is that people can donate either clothing or funding to try and support with the work. We rely significantly on donations, on always fundraising to try and make sure that we're supporting people who are some of the most vulnerable in our community, whether it's tackling homelessness challenges, which has become a particularly challenging situation over the past few months and years, or whether it's about making sure that they've got enough money or even to buy school uniforms for their children and support for those households. So have a look. So you can either donate, volunteer, or share the messages.
So sharing the message. Social media, which platforms are you guys?
We're on Insta, on Facebook.
Instagram, what's Instagram account for Refugee
so what I'd say is go on to our refugeeactionkingston.org.uk. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that we've got direct links. Even there. But we've got links there to Facebook, to Twitter.
Here we go. So on the website, scroll down, you have the link here: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
As well,
And very quickly, so is it Refugee Action Kingston in each one of them?
Each one's slightly different, which is why I say it's probably easier just to go onto our website, have a look at the opportunities that are available, but also connect with...
We will put in the screen each one of them, the Facebook, the Instagram, the details here as well, to make it easier for anybody watching that wants to do so. Sharing these stories that you guys post in those medias is really important to demonstrate to the community exactly, sometimes breaking some myths, sometimes understanding how difficult the situation of the people coming in, and how amazing the work of Refugee Action Kingston doing and plenty others. Then you said volunteering. So people can volunteer with you guys. Can you give some of the positions you have for volunteering? So
we've got opportunities such as being an ESOL teacher. So if somebody's qualified as an ESOL teacher, then they can support.
What's an ESOL teacher?
So the ESOL teacher is a qualified English teacher, language, effectively as a teacher. We've also got opportunities for people who are studying to get perhaps a legal qualification or qualification around welfare advice and support.
Amazing.
So they can support our advice and advocacy work that we do, which is obviously incredibly important and critical support there around that work. And we've also got volunteer counsellors that support our counselling work as well, which of course again is.
So if you're in Kingston and you're watching us and you want to see how you can contribute, you can volunteer with us with Refugee Action Kingston. You can, as Bassam is mentioning here, you can help teaching English. You can, if you are a legal student and you would like and you've got empathy for the case, you can come and support them. Or you also mentioned counselling. If somebody's training for counselling and would like to support,
fantastic.
Or donate. They can donate clothes, can donate furniture, can donate money.
Well, so I'd say clothing is the key thing, or obviously just financially, because actually we have a hardship fund which we issue out because people are really struggling financially. So
yes,
and obviously making sure that we can pay for the professional services that we provide to clients.
How are the donations made?
So again, they can there's a link there to donate at the top.
Here?
Or that one, and if you click on that, you can also just either donate as a one-off or sign up for a direct debit and give monthly.
Amazing. So again, on Refugees Action website, you can come and help and make a donation, make a direct debit and support them. And I'm sure, and we know there's a lot of people sometimes wanting to engage and not knowing what to do. Moving on a little bit, what are the main challenges that the refugees and asylum seekers they face, and do they face different challenges?
Absolutely, everyone will come with their own. Everyone's unique, but there are some general things that a lot of people commonalities in terms of what people will face. And if you want to, again, one of our values is about empathy and putting ourselves in the shoes of the people that we work with. So if you imagine somebody's journey and what they've had to leave behind, so they've had to leave behind their homes. They've had to leave behind often family members. They've had to leave behind their jobs, their schools, everything that they've known behind them.
Sometimes I think we hear a lot of this, but it's trying to, as you said, put ourselves in their shoes. If you, on your daily routine, your kids are going to a certain school and you have all of those plans and for the whole year, or family going to meet, or ambitions for your work or for your kids, and then suddenly you literally need to grab everything and just walk away.
If you're lucky enough to be able to grab everything, Marcus, because often, of course, you don't know when you have to leave. And if you come back and find that your house has been destroyed and family members have gone, then actually the reality is that you can't even pack a rucksack and take it, or something like that. So very often we'll find that most people will have had to leave literally everything behind. So they've just pretty much got the clothes on their own back. With them when they're able to arrive, and often they won't even have their documentation. So some of the challenges that they'll face, obviously for some, their English will be one challenge. The other one is obviously about connectivity. We all have friends and networks that we can rely on. They won't have anybody to be able to rely on when they arrive here in the UK in almost all cases. There's also the challenge of what people think of them. So you may be incredibly bright, able to contribute significantly back home in terms of the job that you did or at school. But when you arrive here, as soon as somebody hears that your English isn't great, then they imagine actually they're making assumptions about you, about your level of intelligence, about what you're able to contribute. Which
they make you feel less.
Absolutely.
And how horrible. We mention a lot sometimes in the training we do on discrimination, how horrible it is to make you feel less. Exactly how you say. Not only the traumatic situation, that on top as well.
And like I say, actually, they're some of the most enterprising people that you'll ever meet. To do that, it's a huge enterprising achievement to be able to bring yourself to take yourself to another country, especially when you're leaving everything behind. Obviously, financially, often, if you can imagine, their money might be stuck in a bank, or financially, if you did even have cash, the likelihood is that your country's inflation rates are probably so extreme that whatever cash you did have is reduced to virtually nothing, and so on. And so that all of those sorts of challenges
Yeah.
are some of the challenges that people face, and hence our breadth of offer as an organisation to everything from that advice and advocacy to education and employment to physical and mental well-being. We touched on it before, but even just to make sure that you're looking after yourself physically as well, because if you're not eating right and you're not feeling right, then actually your physical health will deteriorate, and it's, if you haven't got your health, you've got nothing else. So
and there's I think I've seen once, don't remember which platform, social media or TV, a mother telling a story of what she told her daughter during that traumatic journey. She basically was saying it was a game, and they were playing a game, and it makes anybody emotional when you see her crying in tears, saying, I got in whatever country she managed to get to, and she said, to get here, and we're talking about literally walking through war zone. And everything else, and people mistreating, and seeing people crying, see people sad. And she was telling her daughter throughout the journey that it was a game, it was part of the game, so the daughter wouldn't really see. And as we were saying, that it's not only for an adult is already difficult. Imagine for a child to get through all of this as well, and then come here and glad.
Yeah, you've got to be so emotionally strong to be able to go through all of that, and it's just really unfathomable for anybody who hasn't been through it to try and put yourself in the shoes of what people have gone through to be able to come here. But it is, but hence why we need to provide that support for people. And
thanks God that they have yourselves and a lot more people. We have some vox pops. I think I showed some. I would like to bring up and comment a little bit on what they say. So
I want to understand more about what the council are doing about refugees, and how they can really integrate into the community in Kingston and just really be comfortable in this space. What kind of support is needed for people, especially who are coming from escaping from different countries, etc., stuff like that.
I think he's bringing a question that we were saying before, the integration in the culture. You explained quite a lot. I know we already answered a few, but if you could bring a little bit more on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, let me bring in at this point sort of some of the questions people have around where people come from, and where they go, because actually, first, because I've got my our impact report for the year before last, and we've if you look at the sort of place where people are coming from, it's actually all countries that everyone will be very familiar with in terms of significant challenges that we see on our TV screens, read in our newspapers, see on our social media. So actually Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, Ukraine, Iraq are all countries that people know the situations that are in those countries, how horrific they are. And so those are our top 5 countries of people where people are coming from who come to Kingston. And that's reflected nationwide in terms of where people are arriving from. So they're all places actually that, the vast majority of people are coming from countries that you would say, absolutely. Yeah. If that was you and your family, you would be looking to move, to leave. You would have to leave to try and get reach.
So that means that they already have values that align with the values here in the UK.
Yeah, so I think, look, ultimately, almost everybody who comes here will be wanting to come here because they want to, like anybody else listening to this podcast, simply want to have the best lives for themselves and for their families. And they want to be able to do that by contributing and by showing off their talents and using their talents to the best of their abilities to be able to achieve that. And they just want to have the opportunity to be able to do that. And that's what our country is brilliant at, which is about, it's a country of opportunity. It's a country where people can show their talents and rise to the top because of a meritocracy, rather than being in countries where it's who you know and what political party you're in or what gender you were born or things along those bases, where education is available to all, and we can actually get the best out of ourselves and each other. And that's what people are looking to do when they come here. And there's challenges in terms of doing that, as we've talked about. Obviously, as an asylum seeker, there's very much limitations in terms of what you're able to do for the first few months or whilst you're waiting for your status to be resolved. But in reality, people who come here are looking to come here and contribute towards the economy, to the community, to society.
And I can say I'm a migrant myself. I'm from Brazil. I fortunately didn't come here in a situation that is a lot of empathy. But yes, I absolutely agree. It is a nation that is open. It is a nation that gives opportunities. And I'm sure that, as you mentioned, they are coming here knowing where they're going. The values are probably something that really attracts them to be able to live here as well. So, and you explained a lot of stuff that you guys are doing to support them to integrate, isn't it? They want to integrate.
Absolutely.
They want to be integrated. It's just sometimes we don't understand the whole bureaucracy behind it. As I didn't know, as you just mentioned, that sometimes while they are waiting, they sometimes can't even access to be able to learn English.
Yeah, as I said, Marcus, I mean, they're enterprising individuals who have had to leave their homes. They've had no choice, but they've had to leave their homes. They have made such a phenomenal effort to get themselves to this country.
Yes.
You wouldn't do that unless it was to contribute and to be able to live your best life by nobody wants to come here just to sit on their sit down and say, oh yeah, I've arrived. After all this, I can just expect everyone else to do stuff for me. No, they've come here because they want to be able to achieve for themselves, achieve for their children, be able to get the best lives for them.
So there is an admiration for the culture and the nation from them. Yeah. We've got a couple more.
Merhaba, ben Turkish, Aysel. Kingston'da kızım oturuyor. Buradaki mültecilere ya da yabancı uyruklara Kingston ve çevresinde neler yapıldığını merak ediyorum.
Again, you answer some of this, but thank you for the Turkish lady and all of you who have shared, have contributed to our Vox Pops. Thank you very much for contributing and allowing us to put it here in our podcasts. So she's basically saying her daughter lives in Kingston. What is done, and you covered a lot, but please, if you could just address.
I think we've got to remember as well, Marcus, that we're really fortunate to live in a borough where this is a borough that wants to proactively work with the cohorts that we're talking about, the clients that we're talking about, and be a welcoming place. So they have gone for borough of sanctuary status, which a number of other boroughs have done. We work closely with the local authority, as do other charities that work with the refugee and
just bear in
community.
mind, we have in that podcast because the local authority funded us to be able to create that podcast.
Exactly, because they care about this community,
absolutely.
because they want to make sure that community is supported. So we're very fortunate that we've got a local authority, a council that cares about doing that and understands the requirements and support that's needed to make sure that we are providing that level of support.
Absolutely.
And their ability to be able to show their entrepreneurialism through contributions to society as well.
Amazing. And we have one more.
Where is the main place that they come from? Are they entitled to NHS? And do they get any mental health support?
Yeah, so in terms of our impact report, we talk about where people have arrived here from. They're all countries that you'll have heard of before because they're all conflict zones. So the top 5 countries that we've got are Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, Ukraine, and Iraq.
Iraq.
Yeah, so those are the top 5 countries that we have here in Kingston in terms of the group cohort that we work with. So, and then we've obviously got people from other parts of the world, but they are very much conflict zones.
Okay.
And now the reality is that actually most people don't get to the UK in terms of being refugees. So actually, if you look at it on a worldwide level, most people are actually refugees in their own country, what's termed as internally displaced. So their homes might have been destroyed, they'll have to or have to have left their homes, and they'll be living in refugee camps in their own country because they can't even cross over the border. For many more who do manage to cross over the border, the next country is the country that they will stay in for the rest of their lives. And if you look at that list of countries, it's places like Chad, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Sudan, Lebanon, Jordan, Bangladesh,
so they
Pakistan.
get a lot of refugees.
So actually those countries are themselves, Iran is on that list as well, so actually countries that themselves have challenges. So it's not necessarily much safer than the countries that they've left behind, and certainly often not many rights, if any, in those neighbouring countries as well. The only country that appears on that list is Germany from Europe, and obviously very much to do with their history in the 20th century and their understanding of what needs to support for people that have had to leave those sorts of horrific conditions. And of course, Turkey is top of the list because of its geographical location as being a crossroads between Europe, Asia and Africa. So those who come to Kingston, what do they get in terms of support? They can access NHS services. And we look to make sure that those people who require that, so if they were going to be having a child or what have you, they would be able to get those services. What we do in-house is that we've got our counselling services. So the lady there in the Vox Pop was asking about
the mental
what support
health.
Is there around the mental health, and we understand how important that is for our clients, and so we've got in-house
is also provided
counselling support, which means that we can provide that directly, and that's we're very fortunate to be funded by the local NHS to be able to provide that service.
And again, thank you very much for yourselves that shared, that contributed with your Vox Pops for the podcasts. I hope, and I'm sure Bassam has addressed everything. And please contribute, please join the website, find out a little bit more, share the stories in the social media like Bassam is saying as well, and maybe want to volunteer with them, contact and volunteer. Is there an inspiring story, just before we finish, of the many clients that you helped? I think your story, I must say, is inspiring.
Thank you.
For I don't know, you probably told me, but listening to this is absolutely inspiring. I can't imagine how rewarding it is, because it's the whole empathy you have. But the clients that you help, is there one that particular stand out?
I think for me, one of the key things is obviously when we see young people who arrive and they've got nothing and they've had to make that journey by themselves, very often because as the eldest child within the family, they'll be the ones that get sent out, and you want that better future for your child. But if you put yourself in the shoes of maybe a 15 or 16 year old who's had to travel to the UK by themselves, and so I got
by themselves
to get here, and so the risks that they'll have faced in order to get here in the first place. But we've got a couple of young lads who are unaccompanied asylum seeking children, so that means that they're here on their own, and that they're supported in a care home environment. But what happens is, Marcus, if you're between 14 and 16 and you arrive in the UK, English isn't your first language, you might be the brightest kid in the world, but no college or high school is going to take you on to do your GCSEs. Wow. And of course, without your GCSEs at a certain level, you're not going to really be able to get into any decent job going forward. So our supplementary school means that those young people who can't get into college for whether it's a few months or longer, we provide some support to them to sit down with them, develop that trust, build those relationships, and actually support them to make sure that they're improving their English, work on some of those other key subject areas as well. And we had a couple of lads who were from a conflict zone in Africa who arrived here, and obviously that journey in itself would have been pretty awful. 2 16-year-olds. One wanted to, and they had their own dreams. One wanted to be a doctor, another one a computer engineer, but without GCSEs, of course, they're not going to be able to do that. And we worked really closely with them because the colleges wouldn't take them. We made sure that we worked really hard on their English, and their self-confidence massively improved as a result of them attending our supplementary school. Their English massively improved as being part of our supplementary school. And as a result of that, they were able to get into college. They were able to get in a higher level than they would have got if they just waited and done nothing, or didn't get the support that we provided. And they are now they're now flourishing as two young boys who will be able to, I hope very much, achieve those hopes and dreams that they've come over with, be able to contribute positively to the local community, and be two brilliant British citizens in the future who are able to be great individuals. And we see that time and time again, Marcus. When we see young, particularly young people who we develop those. As you say, that right here with hopes and dreams,
and you're basically supporting them in their path to their dreams. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your team, that amazing team you have, and I'm sure that I share the opinion, Quilombo's team, but the Kingston residents, thanking the great work you're doing and supporting them and sharing with us a bit more for us to learn, for us to see how we can help. And is there any final thoughts, something you maybe would like to share, or anything about Refugee, please feel free.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is that point about empathy, enterprise, and empowering. Those are our three values.
Empathy, enterprise, and empowerment.
Absolutely, because as I say, the clients that we work with, they are all entrepreneurs in terms of what they've had to go through. And if the other bit is obviously the empathy, understanding just put yourself in their shoes for one moment. The reality is that, that's just one story of many. Have a look at our website, have a look at our social media, and share those stories with other people. And obviously by volunteering or donating, you're empowering those individuals, our clients, to be able to be their best selves, to be able to achieve and be able to contribute as much as they can and their children to our local community. I know lots of people out there are struggling in lots of different ways. But the community that we work with are amongst the most vulnerable people in the world. And people out there, if they're able to contribute in one way or another in those three ways that I've talked about, they will be making a huge, lasting impact on the lives of so many people locally.
Yes, amazing. Thank you.
Thank
Marcus. You very much. And we will be back with a bit more information and more organizations. And once again, thank you so much, Bassam. Thank you.